your Chargers linebacker, Deion Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
I think this thing's on. Jake, I think we're live.
Welcome to a special edition of Chargers Unleashed.
Oh, Jay Rock in the house.
Especially with him back there.
Chargers fans, let's make some noise for the Bolt Show signing events live with Chargers Unleashed, Swoop and Tailgate. Jake, this is a big day for Chargers fans.
Jake Effner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LA Football Network. Today's show, of course, is being brought to you by Bet Online, AG1, Aura, Mint Mobile, and of course, today, especially Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia. If this is your first time tuning into the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You could also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. This is Dan Wolkenstein is doubling as sound engineer for today's show. We're good. He's here. We're good.
Collinsworth slide insert.
Collinsworth slide in. Very big day today, Dan. Obviously, we are here at the Marriott Suites in Anaheim for one of the biggest Chargers signing events in recent memory as far as the number of players that will be in attendance today. Very happy to be a part of this. We have been teasing this for a long time here on the show. Very excited about this being out here. The fan base that is participating, the items as far as what is the massive items and players that are coming here to sign events is going to be spectacular. It's going to be a fun afternoon.
Yeah, we got a great show live from the Anaheim Suites, Marriott. I don't even know how to pronounce what the hotel is, but the Anaheim Marriott Suites.
That works.
If you can't see behind us, we've got Tui Tuipulotu doing signings as well as inscriptions. We'll have a photo op for everyone. So big day for Chargers fans as we get into, Jake, we're about to enter week 1 of NFL season. Could not have come long enough. It's taken forever.
Finally.
But this is a live show. So folks who have done live shows with us in the past, in the comments, if you are here, make your presence known. Any questions, topics, things you'd like us to discuss, obviously, we got you covered here. We have some topics we're going to be bringing, but any questions, comments, things you'd like us to bring to the forefront, we'll do our best to incorporate into the show. But Jake, all right, well, first step, we've got Tuli here. I think we talked about a couple weeks ago some of the most important X factors for this Chargers team. We talked about the depth that was needed for this Chargers team going into week 1 versus Miami. A big one that the Chargers actually got drafted early on was Tui Tuipulotu. You saw some flashes during preseason, during training camp. What should Chargers fans expect from the man of the hour behind us as we get to week 1 and beyond?
Well, I think the statement was kind of made when the 53-man roster came out and the Chargers kept only 4 edge rushers, which in this case, you have Chris Rump and Tuli Tuipulotu behind Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack for good reason, because both of those guys showed out very well in the preseason. And for a guy who was taken with the Chargers second round pick this year, having big expectations for him in terms of what he's going to bring as a situational pass rusher. And you already got a little glimpse of that during the preseason. So the expectations should really be good for Tua, because you know with this Chargers team that you want to be getting after the quarterback, and you need to have some other guys back there behind Bosa and Mack that can rush the passer. And in this case, I think they got a gem in Tuli. So you have to be excited about this. The whole, I want to say, a combination of reloaded depth. You got other players that are veterans on this team that have obviously stepped up, mixed with some rookie talent now as well that has definitely showed out early. The reason for optimism as it relates to that your front line or your defense should be very high right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that plagued this Chargers team a year ago was the I word, ends with the Y. We're not going to talk about that, but that's why we have seen the emergence of a Chris Rumph. We've seen Tuli Tuipulotu kind of come in and flash and kind of provide more of that underbelly, which I think has been so important. And one of the crucial pieces of this team and roster building was, can they build depth to where they can kind of bring in guys to help spell the likes of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa while still getting productivity and impact. And I think that's what you're seeing. You saw Tuli with a bunch of moves throughout preseason so far already. We just talked to him a few minutes ago beforehand, like week 1. I can't believe his first NFL games are already here. It's going to be an exciting time to see these rookies. We talked about Tuli. You've got Darius Davis. We've got Quentin Johnston. We've got Deion Henley. Like, there's so many rookies that we're going to see impact and provide production, at least hopefully. And so far, there's no reason for us to think otherwise. It seems like these rookies are really going to be performing. Jake, of the rookies, I think obviously we know Tuli is going to be performing. Quentin Johnston is going to be performing. Darius Davis. what should we expect from rookies in terms of just production in general this season? And how does that compare to like years past where maybe they haven't provided as much as we would have thought?
Dan, that's the key word there, or the key sentence, as far as how does this rookie class so far compare to years past in terms of what we're seeing from them this early. I cannot remember a rookie class under the Tom Telesco era that has shown out this much in preseason. Maybe you'd get one or two in the past, but for the fact that you have Quentin Johnston already been flashing in training camp, obviously getting preseason work, the expectations for him, even as a rookie wide receiver, they expect him to add a lot of juice into that wide receiver room. With Tuli Tuipulotu, we just talked about as far as what he's going to bring as a third or fourth edge rusher to complement Bosa and Mack. Obviously with Deion Henley, saw what he brought during the preseason, the highest graded linebacker according to PFF, and he was definitely balling out for a third-round rookie. Darius Davis has already shown what he can do as far as special teams goes and return capabilities, and you mix in the likes of Scott Matlock in there as well. I mean, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're already seeing highlights from these guys, and as far as their starting contributions on what they're going to bring, I cannot remember a draft class that has had this much hype around it this early before week 1.
1, 2, 3, 4. Then you got Scott Matlock. Then you've got UDFA Elijah Dotson making the roster. And then if you sprinkle on top of that, like year 2 guys, you're seeing JT Wood make the big step forward. Jazeer Taylor, got Dean Leonard. It's pretty remarkable. Like I don't remember that. So I'm trying to like pinch myself, knock on wood, because I don't want to, jinx things too early. But the young guys, I think, is what we have talked about with Justin Herbert's contract and with everything going on with the roster and cap space, all that kind of stuff. The rookie contracts, those players have to perform. They have to produce. They have to give impact on this team, or else they're kind of doomed. And not to sound June gloom, although it is technically September now, and it's kind of gloomy. It was raining on the way here, which is kind of weird. Again, we are live here at the Bolt Show live signing event. Last call for Tuli Tuipulotu. You've got signing events. We are able, obviously, to get any pictures with Tuli. You've got, memorabilia you have. Last call for Tuli Tuipulotu live at the stage. Jake, this is live TV.
Dan, on top of, doubling as the sound engineer, the event moderator as well, and now podcast co-host. So maybe we should be paying you triple.
Hey, or just put it on my handle. Something.
You'll see it in your paycheck.
Yes. Last call for Tuli Tuipulotu. If you are out in the walkway or in here, last call. Okay, Jake. So coming up here in a bit, we've got one of the guys who arguably has looked better than I've ever seen him look at training camp. Keenan Allen, number 13, here at the Bolt Show signing event. I try not to get overly optimistic and overly excited, and I know that's tough for me. No hyperbole, though. This is the best I have seen Keenan Allen look during training camp since I have watched training camp of this team. First, true or false? Second, what does that mean for this team going into week 1?
So before I answer your questions, I like how you teased that by saying, I don't want to sound too optimistic, but I'm going to do it anyways. To answer your first question, 100% true. Again, you think, and we've said this on the show so many times, that you think you've seen it all from Keenan Allen, and the things that he does in practice, he's just like, that's just Keenan Allen things. And it's just not the case, because what he did this year in training camp and OTAs, he just looked like he had another level to him. So Keenan Allen for this team and in this new offense, get hit where he's not just going to be playing in the slot from everything that we have seen. How can you maximize Keenan Allen even more? I think Kellen Moore may have an idea on that.
Yes. It has been quite enticing to see Keenan Allen all over the field. And to see, I think we're so used to seeing Keenan Allen just break ankles in the short routes, maybe intermediate routes. But then you're starting to see him stretch the field between the hash marks, outside the hash marks, at the boundary, making these diving catches. He's just making it look so effortless. And part of you wonders, like, why the bleep have we not seen this in years past? That's the story for another day. But the other part is when you tack on top of him Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston, Darius Davis, Jalen Guyton at some point. We'll have Joshua Palmer all there. And Mike Williams had talked about how they're moving all these guys around. All of these guys moving around including Keenan Allen, and kind of the offensive game plan and the kind of the mindset that Kellen Moore brings with like the aggressiveness. That's, I think, what I'm looking forward to seeing is like when Keenan and or other guys are moving around, how that's going to exploit some of those mismatches. And I wonder, like, how many times are we going to see, like, wait, why is Keenan Allen wide open in the slot? Or why is he wide open in the flats? Like, there's just stuff that you just don't know because you haven't seen it, because you haven't seen an offensive coordinator like Kellen Moore before. So maybe that's the next question then, is Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, Kellen Moore. Like that trio, what will look different because of those? Like, we go back to the last few years. We expect Keenan Allen to be the third down Keenan Allen. We expect Keenan Allen to be breaking ankles and he's wide open for a 7-yard out or in or whatever. Justin Herbert on the money, all that kind of stuff. What's going to be different this year, specifically with Keenan Allen as we get geared up?
Look, I enjoy third and Allen as much as anybody does out there, but I also think that kind of couples with a little bit of predictability that the Chargers needed to get out of their offensive game plan to where everybody knew it's like, okay, if it's 3rd and 12, it's probably going to be going to your best wide receiver in Keenan Allen. But defenses know that just as well as Chargers fans, and anybody who's been watching the Chargers knows that. So what are you going to get with Kellen Moore added to this offense? I think you're going to get a different dynamic, Dan, to where you're going to get out of that predictability scheme. So where even as it relates to Keenan Allen, he may be running a different route, or the ball's not going to be going to him, not because he doesn't deserve it, but because somebody else is going to be roaming free when they should be. And maybe you're going to get Keenan Allen, as he said many press conferences ago, hey, maybe Mike Williams can take a double team and get these guys off of me for a change. So maybe you'll get some more singles on Keenan Allen, even as from a defensive standpoint, as irresponsible as that may be to single cover Keenan Allen for as lethal of a route runner as he is. That may, again, still in this scheme, offer those opportunities for Keenan Allen more.
Yep. Again, we are live from the Bolt Show signing event in Anaheim. Folks, live. Let's make some noise for Chargers that are going out this week. Week 1 coming up soon. We've got some chants starting off here in Anaheim. We are live again. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, things I get to discuss about this team, hey, there are pessimists.
There are many. There might be plenty.
Welcome to Chargers Unleashed. If you have questions in the comments, if you are watching live, go ahead and put them in the comments, and we will do our best to kind of get to these. Jake, let's get to a couple of these. Brad, I'm not going to even try to pronounce his last name. Brad says moving them around.
Spicoli.
Okay. Look, clearly I'm not good at last names. I know my weaknesses.
Go ahead. I at least knew that last name.
Moving them around is going to make the running game elite. Jake, I think one of the probably more underrated things about this offensive change with Kellen Moore is how the running game, and Brad, you're dead on, how the running game is going to be more effective. We saw it during preseason. We saw explosive runs from Elijah Dotson, from Joshua Kelly, from Isaiah Spiller. We haven't seen that in preseason, even if it is just preseason. When's the last time we saw 270-plus yard runs, regardless of if they come back or not?
I mean, not just that. I mean, look at the total yardage that the Chargers ran for just in the preseason alone. It's been a long time since, definitely not in the Tom Telesco era. Have you seen that happen in the preseason? I know we're talking about the preseason, but I also started thinking, Dan, after the preseason was done and you kind of evaluate that, if you take it a little bit, just dig a little bit deeper, it's funny how the fact that we're standing here with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator of this team, after he was ceremoniously let go because his former head coach said he wanted to run the ball more. Maybe that was a statement. Maybe possibly
we're like,
that was a statement. It's like, hey, I know how to run the ball plenty and make it effective and still be a high-powered offense.
Yeah. When another offense or another team has like a top 10 offense and top 1 offense in the second half, I agree with the statistics, but
scoring points in the second half,
kind of a big deal.
Hey,
when that's not good enough, and when you're the Chargers and you looked at kind of the numbers, so to speak, in the first and third quarters specifically, and an offensive coordinator like that gets let go and they're told that they don't want their services anymore, I think Chargers fans are going to be like, yep, sign me up. I'm ready. Let's go. Kellen Moore, come on this bus. This running game is going to look different. Jake, you and I think within the first hours of Kellen Moore being called the offensive coordinator officially, you and I talked about how different the running game will look now and what it looked like in Dallas. Now, granted, different pieces, But the running game, I think, is going to look different. You're going to see a lot more zone schemes. Things were simplified. You've heard players kind of talk about how much of a difference it looks now. They don't have to think as much. Running backs can just hit 1, 2, 3 gap and go. We've got folks behind us hitting 1, 2, 3 gaps and then giving peace signs and going out the side door. But look, at the end of the day, the running game will look different. We've been bullish on that in this show since the beginning. Running game, I think, is going to be good. Let's see. Scott has a question here. First game, more passing or rushing yards? And yes, give me more of more. More
sounds good.
more, please.
More.
1 O and 2 O's. But Jake, what do you say? More passing or rushing yards?
When you start, so you start measuring that against the Dolphins defense and a lot of what that looked like last year. Obviously, we're talking about 2 different offensive schemes. And in terms of what you had last year in that game, health along your offensive line, you're obviously getting your best offensive lineman back with Rashawn Slater. And the emphasis to really run the ball, I think, is just really going to balance this offense out in general. So you're going to get more opportunities to free stuff up for Herbert down the field. Dan, I would probably still say, because I'm not going to stand here even still from the standpoint of lauding the Chargers for what they've done in the offseason, you still can't discount how good and impressive, even without Jalen Ramsey, that the Dolphins defense is. So I will actually be leaning more to the pass in this category than the run. However, you'll probably see a much better run game than was produced by the Chargers against Miami.
That's what I was going to say. More running yards 100%. This year than last year. I'll put all of my savings on that.
Yes.
I shouldn't say that, because knowing my luck, that'd be the one time where like Chargers go for 100 yards passing. But no, absolutely, I'm going to go more passing yards. At the end of the day, it is Justin Herbert's team. And it's going to go by his arm, but you will see more balanced team for sure. Jake, Aaron Johnson. See, this is why I don't say last names. Aaron Johnson. Do you guys believe that Dotson making the roster and the 4 tight ends caused the Horvath release? Now, breaking news for folks who have not seen. It looks like Xander Horvath is going to be doing work over in Pittsburgh. But before Jake, this is Hot Mike. Another Chargers player in the house today. Let's give it up for Tito Ogbang Amiga here from Los Angeles Chargers. If you guys have memorabilia, photo ops, please be sure to line up on if you're looking at the stage on the right-hand side. But anymore, let's give it up for Tito, your Los Angeles Chargers interior defensive line. Oh, we got some fighting words in here for the Chargers opponents this year, which is fantastic.
We've seen Tito on the field, and you're standing up, and it's like, to try to be as close to a 1-to-1 ratio as you possibly can. But literally, he was standing right here before you announced him in. When you're sitting down and you're standing next to Tito, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and one of the things that Chargers fans know a lot about has been the interior defensive line, the run game on defense specifically. How can they stop the run? We talked about the explosive plays given up last year. Tito's a big part of that. I know he's still going through rehab, getting kind of set up. I believe he's on the PUP list currently. So at earliest, maybe we'll see him week 5. Don't know. I wonder if somebody's going to ask him that question. We'll find out. But he's a big part of this interior defensive line. Scott Matlock added into the fold. Nick Williams added to the fold alongside Sebastian Joseph-Day. Austin Johnson is now healthy back in games. Obviously, like with the addition of those, plus you've got Morgan Fox, Gerard Clark is on the practice squad. Like there's a whole bunch of interior guys, I think, that has been brought in to finally solidify the run defense. And Tito coming back is a big reason for folks to get excited when he does come back, because he was balling when he had, unfortunately, that injury last season.
Yeah, Dan, also familiar face, Christian Covington, who was also with the team for a period of time last year.
Welcome back.
So familiarity. And again, a little bit of reshuffling with some new faces, new places, obviously from a rookie and free agent signing standpoint. But you could tell that the emphasis was put on fixing the defensive running game this offseason. And we heard this.
You guys actually know what you're talking about?
No.
Rock,
we got all of our notes from you.
Hope that we do.
Actually, you guys really know what you're talking about.
At least we try to act like we do.
The man of the hour, Jay Rock from Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia, who put on this tremendous event for Chargers. Hey, let's give it up for Jay Rock, fellas, ladies, children. Rock solid sports memorabilia, bringing all of these players and the opportunity to spend some time with them, get your autographs, pictures. Great job by RSSM. So, Jake, apologies.
No, it's all right. So going back to that, I was basically just saying you could tell that the emphasis by this coaching staff to know that they needed to shore up.
Emphasis on what?
The struggles in the run game that they had last year. You've heard Chris Rump talk about it as far as what they were.
Yep.
Did not mince words when it came to how they felt about it. So from a defensive standpoint, from the players to the coaches, you know that their focus is going to be on stopping the run. They have to after last year's showing. So again, with a guy like Tito, who was definitely performing well last year before he went down with the injury, again, you reload that with having guys like Sebastian Joseph Day, Austin Johnson, now new talent with Nick Williams, Scott Matlock in that type of a rotation. And now, again, we're talking about you have to add in the edge guys to this because remember how Joey Bosa can set the edge. He went out in week 3 last year. You have Khalil Mack. You have Chris Rump now, who looks reinvigorated in the preseason. Hopefully that transfers to the regular season. And now you add in Tuli Tuipulotu. So in general,
it's a lot of names.
Oh, and I apologize because, run defense is not just the defensive line. It's also the linebackers.
That's
as well.
where I was going.
Why did you go out and you sign a guy like Mr. Eric Kendricks, who seems to already have been rubbing off dramatically on one Kenneth Murray?
Yes. Yeah, I think that was an important piece. And you heard folks from all the different position groups talk about, I feel like a lot of times the interior defensive linemen or just defense line in general, they get all of the flack and all the criticism when the run defense is poor. And are they absolved for any of the blame? No. But there's 11 guys on defense. And the secondary, the linebacking core, all of them play into the success and failures of run defense. Derwin James talked about it. Kenneth Murray's talked about it. Eric Kendricks has talked about it. The defensive line's talked about it. And I think the emphasis, and Jake, you and I talked about it before during training camp, how much of an emphasis we saw, specifically, tangibly on tackling fundamentals, gang tackling, wrapping up, pushing to the sidelines, getting leverage. I saw more of that this year than I've seen in the times that I've covered training camp specifically. And then you see it present itself during preseason, where if you go back and watch all 22 and you're seeing a swarm of blue jerseys or white jerseys go to the ball and not just assume that the other guy's going to get it. It takes all 11. And I think Derwin James talked about this team now kind of being more connected, being another year together. The run defense is going to be a collective effort, but it seems like with the communication of Eric Kendricks, with Derek Ansley now at the helm, with the linebacking core kind of coming together, you're seeing the interior defensive line getting healthier, the secondary one more year. That's going to bring success, and it has to bring more success than what we saw last year.
100%, Dan. And I like how you had touched on just the fundamentals, which really, when it comes to the regular season, sometimes it's easy as how you're tackling and the number of missed tackles you have. That's the difference between a win and a loss. And the Chargers had, unfortunately, just too many issues with that last season. And even if you want to measure it down to the emphasis that's put on special teams this year, we're just talking about fundamentals, I think you've already seen that translate in the preseason. You've obviously seen it translate in training camp to a degree because obviously you're not tackling guys to the ground. Mm-hmm. But in general, you could tell that the Chargers, from Brandon Staley to Kellen Moore to Derek Ansley, just wanted to get back to the basics and build from there. And I think that they have done a successful job in doing that.
I agree. Let's get back to the questions and comments. Again, if you're live with us in the chat or if you're live here in the auditorium, if you have any questions you'd like to come up and ask us, be on the show, happy to do so. Jake, we have a question here from Kyle asking, what do you guys think about our new signings over Horvath? I'm okay with it when I see a guy only miss 2 tackles and DH is hurt. So what do you think of the signings, UDFA specifically? Or practice squad guys?
I mean, I think when you want to measure the practice squad, there's a lot of actually veteran presence that's on that practice squad. Now you're not just talking about inexperience with practice squad guys and guys that have gotten drafted this year. So I think for the standpoint that you have a lot of veteran presence now, whether regardless of which player we're talking about in this circumstance, I think that the Chargers really looked at what the market was, evaluated that properly in terms of what their needs were to shore up possible depth at certain positions. I think they did a great job in doing that. In terms of the position that was taken over Xander Horvath, I think that was probably not a that may not have been a situation to where the Chargers were going to expect that. Obviously, we got the news literally after the 53 was made and the first Chargers practice that was done, we found out that Deion Henley had a hamstring injury. So obviously you needed to shore up a little bit of the linebacker depth there. There still is no timetable on when Deion Henley is going to return at this point in time. But I think the Chargers made a responsible move in going out and getting experience at the linebacker position. And even from a standpoint of Xander Horvath, I think it was a necessary move.
I agree. We're going to take a quick 30-second break here, and we'll be back from the Bolt Show live at the Anaheim Marriott Suites to talk about more from Chargers fans and the live signing event as we get towards week 1 versus Miami. We'll be back in about a minute for a commercial break. All right, we are back live. Chargers Unleashed at the Bolt Show. Tito Ogbang Amiga currently signing here from the Chargers squad. Hopefully, we'll get him back on the active roster soon as he continues his rehab. I wonder if anybody up there is asking him about Week 5 availability. What do you think, Jake?
And I'm sure he's turned it down.
Yes, probably.
No comment.
If he was smart, no comment.
No comments.
Yep. Jake, all right, let's get to it. Let's get to the next question here. Talk about, this is from Bolt Up Baby. Again, if you have questions live in the chat, go ahead and send it to us. We'll do our best to get through. We've got Enrique, 2022 Fan of the Year for the Los Angeles Chargers here with us. Let's give it shout out to Enrique, huh? President of the Die Hard Bolt Club, doing the Lord's work for Chargers fans worldwide. Shout out. Jake, talk to us about, this is from Bolt Up Baby. Talk about just how important this first game against Miami is. As an example, it's key when record tiebreakers in January are used to determine who's in the playoff. We talked to Haley Elwood about this.
Exactly.
And what was the term that she had mentioned? It was like a wild card game.
Yeah, keep it like that because you know that the AFC West is going to be stacked. And when we're talking about what record is going to get you in the playoffs, and Dan, we were just talking about this morning off camera. You told me that the over-under line for the Chargers as far as their
9.5.
9.5. So to me, 9.5 or 9, whatever the hell you want to call it, that's not making the playoffs this year with how stacked the AFC conference is.
That's going to be tough.
So a game like this against an opponent like Miami that you know is going to make a high playoff push, it's huge. Now, as Haley said, let's leave the quarterback rhetoric out of it. I know that was obviously huge when it came to this game last year as far as everything else that had been hyped up about it. And the Chargers thankfully went out and handled business in regards to that. But whatever you want to say about that type of a competition should be secondary. A game like this and a statement like this, from a standpoint of what this is going to mean for Justin Herbert going into his 4th year, what it's going to mean for the emphasis of having Kellen Moore man this offense, with all the new weapons, how they're going to be utilized, with the Chargers run game, go out there and make a statement, because the Chargers have to make noise in the AFC conference this year. They're going to have a good record in order to make a playoff push, because obviously contending with Kansas City in your own division is going to make it difficult enough. But when you have to contend with every other AFC team just to make sure that you get into the playoffs, it's going to be that much more difficult. So it's a huge game for the Chargers.
Yeah, one thing that will help is going to have healthy receiving core. And Keenan Allen, the Slayer himself, who is here live at the Bolt Show as we speak, will be up here momentarily for signing. He will be available week 1 as of right now. And this Chargers offense, what to expect against the Dolphins and how important this game is. Obviously, we've talked storylines all offseason about starting fast. You've heard Brandon Staley talk about that being something that was important. Real quick, Jake, give it up for Tito Ogbang Amiga, joining Chargers fans here at the Anaheim Marriott and Suites. Line was crazy for Tito, huh? All those footballs. I don't know, Jake. Tito looks pretty healthy to me. That looks like a 5-6 week rehab, if I had to hope.
You and many others.
Yes. But yes, offense, I think, actually, I'm thinking about this, Jake. What's more important from a statement? Obviously, you can say both, but I think there are more questions about the defense than the offense. Like, obviously, I think, I have less concern about the offense figuring it out than I do the defense being a little leaky. Now, so I'm just thinking for this game, what needs to be at that level to win? Is it the offense or the defense?
Well, okay,
the offense can carry
let's think about it. Let's think about this for a second.
Shout out to both.
What the defense did last year
against Miami. Okay, good point. Touche.
Okay, was impressive enough from the standpoint that Alohi, first pass of that game, if you remember, was going deep to Tyreek Hill, and Alohi Gilman was with him step by step, and it was obviously an incomplete pass. But to me, what I would rather see is now you have Vic Fangio over there in Miami, who obviously is very familiar with Brandon Staley and how he coordinates. So to me, that's the biggest thing. If your emphasis is that you're going to be putting up points in the red zone, if your emphasis is on why you went out and you got Kellen Moore. Now, obviously, end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's a 10-7 score and the offense doesn't end up performing the way that we thought it would. At the end of the day, you come out with a W.
I agree.
But to me, I would actually think, as much as you would say on paper, it's like, oh no, the offense is going to take care of itself, and that's totally fine.
We got man of the hour, Tito Ogbang Amiga, coming behind us on Chargers Unleashed.
There he goes.
Tito, best of luck. Stay healthy. Let's see week 5, huh? See week 5? Hey! Question mark, maybe. Could have been a thumbs up, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
But getting back to that, Dan, that to me is actually the bigger question mark. Because, yeah, on paper, as much as you would like to say, the offense is going to take care of itself with Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore. To me, I would actually, even without Jalen Ramsey, I want to see how this offense is going to perform against that defense, especially with the offensive line. Because you remember, even though the Chargers came out of there with a victory, Justin Herbert was still under duress at moments of those games.
True.
So I'm ready to see how this offensive line is going to take command of the trenches, how that running game is going to perform. How is this Chargers offense going to utilize all their weapons? How are you, the biggest question, Dan, how are you going to maximize Justin Herbert's ability?
And I wonder, I don't know why just this thought came to me of, we saw in preseason when the Chargers just ran it down the opponent's throat. I think it was 10 of 11 plays against the 49ers?
Yeah.
That went for a run on that scoring touchdown on 4th and 1 that was thrown to Cam Moyer, I believe. That was a 4th down throw. Can you imagine how gratifying, how satisfying it would be to let's say the Chargers are up 4-6, something like that, and they go on a 11 play, 64-yard, 6-minute, 8-run, 3-pass touchdown drive to seal the victory against Miami week 1. That would be euphoria to me.
That was shades to me of what we saw in Brandon Staley during his rookie head coaching season. Because if you remember that week 1 in that particular season, that's exactly what the Chargers did in their week 1 performance. Yes. Where they literally had a 7.5-minute mark and they never gave it back. So that to me would be that to me would also be a statement to say, hey, we can still run the ball over here.
Yes, but we saw kind of the preview from the Chargers social media team on the first All-In episode of cameras were on since the moment that Jacksonville game went off, and how important and how much this team has thought about that playoff loss and how that impacts the fire and the burn and the excitement and the motivation for this season. Couple that with these players trying to play for themselves, couple that with it being week 1, couple that with all the storylines underneath with the Dolphins and Tua versus Justin Herbert, which hopefully we can be past that at this point. And just this team knowing that they have to prove stuff. Like the stuff is so long that it has to be proven, but there is redemption on the mind of so many players this season that week 1, these guys are going to be like lines out of a cage, just ready to hit somebody and have it actually matter. And so can the team kind of take that fuel and harness it in a way that's effective? Because sometimes people's emotions can get the best of them and you can be overhyped for things, which I'm sure both teams are going to be hyped. Can the team and can the coaching staff help them like channel the excitement, channel the aggression, channel the motivation in a way that can most benefit the team and come out victorious week 1? We're not going to get into like game predictions. We're not going to get into all that kind of stuff. We got a week till we have to worry about that, but that will be next week. The next week, excuse me. We have a question here, Jake. Who is going to be covering Tyreek Hill and Waddle? And Waddle's a lot, actually, is the name. Shout out to Kyle for the question. Jake, I'm going to pose this question to you. I did put out something maybe, 3 months ago about kind of the difference between zone and man coverage and specifically which defenders are better at each of those. But to you, Jake, who's covering Tyreek Hill? Is it one person or is it going to be a collective effort?
You're probably going to see multiple. I mean, why would you not want to give it to Alohi given how he kind of took care of business last time outside of a fumble recovery by Tyreek Hill that unfortunately ended up running all the way to the end zone.
That's insane, by the way.
At surface level, your eyes would also go directly to Michael Davis, considering that he's one of your faster DBs that you have on this roster.
Yep.
That would probably be my early prediction, is a rotation between those two. And from Waddle's standpoint, how about JC Jackson?
Ooh.
How about JC Jackson?
Oh. I'm torn on this. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a collective effort, and it's not going to be just one person. If you look at kind of the Chargers defense and Miami's offense and kind of what those players do well, Asante Samuel Jr. has like those cat instincts and plays better in zone coverage where he can man a position, an area of the field, quick trigger, go. Jazeer Taylor, I believe, has more of a play style where he can match up man-to-man, stay with you wherever you go. Then you look at J.C. Jackson, you look at Michael Davis. Michael Davis is also kind of that man-to-man guy, as is J.C. Jackson. So really, you've got like 3 guys, top-tier players, that can all do man-to-man coverage. Then you got slot defenders like Asante Samuel Jr. So I think you're probably going to see those fast guys like Tyreek Hill. Like that's going to be a lot of Mikey Davis, Jazeer Taylor, J.C. Jackson in your eyes. The quick twitch guys, I think you're going to see underneath probably be more of a zone. So like outside man, inside zone, maybe some sort of blend of the two. But that's going to be interesting. And if you're an opposing player, opposing coaching staff, like you always look for like the quote unquote weak link. So looking at the secondary of this Chargers team, I think folks were wondering about Alohi Gilman. Like, can he be that? Can he step up to like how he did last year to where that's like the baseline? We don't know where he's at in terms of if he's going to be starting week 1. That hasn't been talked about as he's been rehabbing I think it's a calf injury. But the weak link, quote unquote, or maybe the last on the depth chart who's active. So like you think about a player like Dean Leonard, or maybe a JT Woods, or Alohi Gilman, maybe Jazeer Taylor, guys like that. Those are the ones that I think are going to have to show up and step up when called upon. Because if I'm an opposing team, I'm going to target those guys before I target Mike Davis, J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr. Can they live up to that? Because we've seen success during preseason and training camp, but like when the lights are on, that's a whole different story.
Dan, I think I harken back to that question by just thinking about how competitive the competition has been in the secondary throughout this preseason. And I'll also say, from what I had said previously, I think that this is the secondary that Brandon Staley has this year. And you've already kind of seen previews of it and how he's done some rotations with guys, and obviously wanting to see more from second-year players like JT Woods and giving Alohi Gilman a starting opportunity. I think this is as close as we're going to see to a secondary that Brandon Staley had when he was with the Rams back during that time, when that secondary was made up of veterans,
lethal,
of mid-round draft picks that ended up performing very well, but it gave his defense an opportunity to be multiple in the secondary. That's what you get with a guy like J.C. Jackson. That's what you get when you build up a guy like Jasir Taylor, and have him in a rotation with Asante Samuel Jr. Mike Davis, you already know what you're getting on that side of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And now inserting guys like JT Woods into this rotation, which I think he definitely wants to do in terms of having three safeties rotate between him, Derwin, and Alohi. You're going to have such a versatile, multiple secondary that you can create a whole different type of number of packages.
Do you think Chargers fans are excited?
I think they might be a little excited.
Chargers fans here, local in Anaheim, let's make some noise for your Chargers 2023 team. We have LAFB, we've got Chargers Unleashed, we've got Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia in the house doing all of this work for you. Let's give it up for Jay Rock here, walking out. Let's embarrass him a little bit. Jay, thank you so much for making this happen for Chargers fans. Let's make some noise for Jay Rock and Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia. We're moments away from Keenan Allen, Jake, joining Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia in the Bolt Show here. We'll have signing. I have a feeling that line is going to be quite long here. For folks who are in the building and ready for Keenan Allen, make sure you have all of your inscription details and everything ready. Make sure you have the color of Sharpie you want done. Everything's paid for you guys. If there are things that you have not yet paid for that you'd like to have done, please make sure you have all of that taken care of before you get in line so we can kind of go as quickly as possible. No like official selfies and stuff with the team or with the players. If you guys have your photo ops paid for already, you have that off to the side. Otherwise, this is for signing, not necessarily for pictures as much. But otherwise, Keenan Allen will be joining soon the Bolt Show. Stay tuned. Get hyped. The Slayer himself. Momentarily.
So, Dan, I'm sure, again, J Rock has basically sending your paycheck in the mail. For
it's in the mail.
Helping moderate this event on top of podcasting.
I'm trying. I'm not doing great, but I'm trying. Jake, so storylines. Maybe let's kind of extrapolate past week one. Let's go month one. Month one, obviously, this is across the NFL. Like, things need to be ironed out. You see some stuff that has to get fixed, some players coming back, getting into the flow of things. What do you see as maybe some things that need or that we'll see get ironed out in that first 3-4 games? While like some of the, I don't want to call it rust gets kind of taken out, but as you start to get a feel for the identity of the team.
I think it's an actually easier question to answer, Dan, rather than predicting what will get ironed out as opposed to what needs to hit the ground running. What can't take any time to iron out.
And answering a question with a question. That's like podcasting 101. I'm impressed.
Hey, thank you. You know, I would hope that my years of doing this with you would somehow generate
here we are.
Such a trait. I would say the one thing that I don't think that you can afford to iron out and hit the ground running that you need to have is you need to win in the trenches. This revamped offensive line with the return of Rashawn Slater, with Zion Johnson now being to his right in the middle of him and Corey Lindsley, now with Jamari Sawyer moving over from left tackle to right guard next to Trey Pipkins. There's a statement to be made with this offensive line and how that is going to control so many facets of how this offense is going to work, not just in the run game, but ultimately protecting Justin Herbert for what we all want to see, which is Justin Herbert going deep. All of this is going to be predicated along the offensive line. So when you run in the trenches, that changes a multitude of different things as it relates to how your game is schemed.
Yeah. Perception is reality a lot of times. And given how the year was a year ago, and given what this team has been working on this offseason, you said trench warfare, I think you mentioned. If the Chargers run defense starts off slow and gives up some explosive plays week one, like you're going to see pitchforks come out in a hurry of like essentially three-letter words.
Again.
Yes. Oh no. And then same thing. If you see the Chargers running game stall and just get brick walled, Lots of, again, perception is reality. And no better way to kind of start curbing those and kind of getting past that than to come out week 1 to whatever it is, lay the hammer on defense, get some explosive runs on offense, get this thing started to where it gets fans, gets teams, gets opponents excited and scared at the same time of, okay, this is different. Like we saw with Darius Davis as an example. When's the last time we saw like a punt return go for longer than 12 yards? Teams know that. And you see a punt return in preseason, his first game in, that's on tape. Like now teams have to be like, okay, we have to look out for that. Week 1, if you start seeing the Chargers defense ratchet it up, you start seeing them lock down on offense and bust through with some 50, 60-yard explosive runs, that's on tape. And then Chargers opponents are then going to have to say, okay, we can't put 10 on, we can't just play soft. We got to put guys in the box, and all of a sudden that opens it up for the offense passing-wise. So you're right. The things that have to get started quickly to kind of change narratives, I think it's the trench stuff. Stop the run successfully, churn clock, and impose physical will. We've hoped for that. Chargers Brandon Staley, head coach, has talked about wanting to kind of have that tough and rugged mindset. Can they start off week 1 with it? Let's go to some questions, comments. We've got Enemy here. Enemy 805 bought my tickets. Going to be the home opener. So excited. Let's go. Alfredo here. Jake is talking about Michael Davis is going to cover Tyreek Hill. JC is going to be covering Waddle if JC Jackson plays. JC Jackson we haven't talked about.
I think he's going to play.
Oh, do you?
I think he's
okay, this is weird for you because you have said, I don't think he's going to play.
No. Sorry, announcements were being made just now. So Mike Williams is coming up next.
All right, Mike Williams will be here in about 10 minutes. Be prepared. Whole lotta, number 81. If you have all of your memorabilia and stuff ready, come on to this side of the auditorium. Again, make sure you have the Sharpie color that you wanted done. Have all your details ready to go. If you have your photo op, be ready. If there's anything that you want done that you have not already signed up for and paid for, you still have time to go back out to the lobby and get all those details ironed out so that when you come over back to the photo op, you guys are ready to go. We can hit this ground running. We got a pretty nice wide receiver duo in the house today. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams joining the Bolt Show here in a bit. Chargers fans, when they come in here, we got to make some noise for your 1-2 wide receiver. Stay tuned for that.
Once again, Dan Wolkenstein, multitasker extraordinaire.
Not great at it, but
you're handling it very well, sir. You're handling it very well. So back to your question. I have never once said that I did not expect JC Jackson.
No, let me clarify. When you were saying, I just don't know. I want to temper expectations. I don't think we're going to see JC Jackson come out day 1 of training camp. I don't think we're going to see JC Jackson come out during the joint practice. And then like both of those times, I think there's 3 different separate times where you think, I don't think he's going to be ready by, and then they in fact were. So this is the first time where you say, you know what? Yes, he's going to be there.
It's because all the checkpoints that have been made to get to this point when we're talking about his individual rehab and how the team has handled his rehab in terms of practice. Obviously not playing in the preseason. None of us expected JC Jackson to do that. But I think that next week is everything accumulated that what this team wanted to get him where he needs to be. And that's starting week 1, which is still amazing to hear given the injury and his rehab time and his rehab process. I know that they said from a timeline standpoint that he was technically on schedule. It doesn't matter because guys who have had this injury, there are some that have never come back and have been the same. And everything that you've seen from JC Jackson thus far in practice and his own rehab, again, you can't help but be happy for this guy for the hard work that he has put in the offseason to get back.
100%. We are live. Chargers Unleashed here at the Bolt Show in Anaheim at the Marriott. We got Chargers fans getting this room filled up by the minute. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, set some things up on our end. We'll be back with more Chargers Unleashed from the Bolt Show in Anaheim. Coming up next. Okay, Jake Hefner. We are live here in Anaheim for the Bolt Show. We've seen Tito Ogbang here get stuff signed. We've seen Tuli Tuipulotu. I said those first names first, so I got those out of the way, and I said them correctly, so my work here is done. Very proud of myself. So week 1, we've got Miami. I know I kind of want to just stop talking about week 1 until we get to week 1. We're still in week 0. What have been kind of your just biggest highlights or things that have been different leading up to week 1 than we've seen? Let's just compare it to last year. Because last year was like all the hype. They got J.C. Jackson. They brought in all the dudes from free agency the year prior. Defense under Staley going into year 2. There's so much hype. And then you just saw things kind of go down and the dominoes fall, and then players got hurt, and then there's all the different situations. But training camp-wise, up to now, what have been maybe your biggest, let's go top 2, 3 storylines, things you've noticed that will impact the team's success this year?
I think it could be summarized in 2 words, Dan, and we've talked about this on the show plenty of times: aggressiveness and response. And when I talk about aggressiveness, obviously you start with Kellen Moore in terms of what he wants to do for this offense, maximizing Justin Herbert's ability, obviously having a much more balance between the running game and the passing game, getting the Chargers to be more productive in that circumstance. But in terms of response goes, Dan, remember right before training camp started when we were even saying, as far as in a soft type of way, predicting what was going to happen on the first day of training camp, where the defense historically wins day 1.
True.
And then the offense comes back to it and get things rolling. It did not happen like that at all, where it was the first day, I believe it was the offense that ended up winning that day. But then the second day, the defense came back and just smashed them in the face. And for several days afterwards, it was just a back and forth heavyweight fight. And you loved seeing that, where it wasn't just one side dominating the other all the time. It was much more competitive. And then as it got through more of the preseason games and training camp, there was a much more balanced battle between both units. So we traditionally haven't seen that in the past. And I think from what you have now in Kellen Moore and his philosophy with this offense, and then you couple that with promoting Derek Ansley, and as much as we have heard from Brandon Staley, as much as even the league talked about it, how coveted he was on possibly being on the open market and taking a job elsewhere, you hear from the players, Dan, how much they love Derek Ansley. And as he has said publicly, he can be a player's type of coach. He can be aggressive and rah-rah when he needs to, or he can be calm, cool, and collected and, send the message that way if he needs to. I think you're already seeing a much more, in a way, an aggressive response from the defense just as it relates to this new coaching staff. So I think the changes have started from the top, and I think what the Chargers staff has put together in a single offseason has already translated to results that we've seen early in training camp.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest piece, I think it's the easy one, is talking about how different the offense looks and how they're being more explosive, running down the field, both passing and running game. But I hope for it. This is like my Christmas wish, was hoping that by the time training camp started, that we saw them just nail in tackling fundamentals. I want tackling fuel. Shout out to Waterboy for all 6 weeks. That's all I wanted. I just want to see tackling. Tackling fuel. And it felt like almost every single day we were at practice, they started off with some variation of tackling fundamentals. And it wasn't just one position group. It was like the whole defense was practicing this at the same time and then kind of doing a rotation of drills. That, I think, to me, is probably something that will express itself more than people realize during the regular game. But, Jake, let's go back to the offense for a second. We've got a whole lot of Mr. Mike Williams will be joining us momentarily at the Bolt Show. Again, if you have memorabilia, photo op opportunities, things you've purchased for Mike Williams, make sure that you are ready to go on that side. Line will be formed. It will be long, so be patient. We'll get some Chargers chants going here once he gets in here. But when he gets in, let's make sure we give a big round of applause and cheers for Mr. Whole Lotta himself, Mike Williams, coming in here momentarily at the Bolt Show. Again, if you have inscriptions that you've already paid for, great. If there are things that you'd like done, you still got time to go ahead and get those paid for up at the lobby. Nothing can really be customized once you're out there. You get what you pay for. You guys know that. Again, no crazy photos. That's what the photo ops are for. But Mike Williams will be here soon. Chargers fans, you guys ready for Mike Williams, huh? Woo! We got some amazing Chargers gear up in here. I don't know if we can show it, but there's like a mask thing going on over here in the corner with like Chargers bolts going everywhere, like looking fresh. I like that. I think he's wearing a Thule jersey, by the way, as well.
Wilkinson, I think you really missed your calling, man. Outside of doing the show with you, just in terms of hosting an event, telling everybody the rules that they needed to know, moderating it properly. I think you really missed your calling in this.
So you're saying I'm a control freak? Is that what you're saying?
Slightly.
Okay. Slightly. At least you're honest. At least you're honest. But no, I think much like I'm trying my best to tackle this event, I think Chargers fans
what a segue.
Are looking to see Chargers defense tackling somebody. Broken tackles was a crippling effect of this Chargers defense last year. Other than that, I think I am curious about how Derek Ansley expresses himself on his defense. We saw him call plays this offseason, which, like, when's the last time I saw a preseason game from Brandon Staley not called by Brandon Staley on defense? Wink, none. Folks are excited about Derek Ansley on this defense. Like, players.
They should be.
Folks watching the team.
You should be.
Folks covering the team. He brings a fire and energy. Even on last year's, some of the mic'd up moments, you see Derek Ansley with like the leg kicks, running up and down the sidelines, going crazy. And he was not even the defensive coordinator at the time. DBs, you saw how good that DB room looked. But hey, Mr. Whole Lotta himself here live.
Arrived.
Mike Williams is in the house. Looking for a big year from Mike Williams. Chargers fans, let's give a warm welcome to Mike Williams of your Los Angeles Chargers here with you at the Bolt Show. Mike looks just as tall as I remember him last time we saw him.
And we're sitting down, Dan.
Even if I'm standing up, he's a solid foot taller than me. All right, again, Mike Williams, if you have all of your memorabilia, make sure you're lined up on the right-hand side. Photo ops are ready. You can't miss him. He's wearing lime green. Shout out to Mike Williams, Mr. Whole Lotta, number 81. Let's have some fun, Chargers fans. Jake, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen.
Dan, you make me laugh. In case anybody can't see Mike Williams, now you got to put out what color shirt he's wearing. Just so everybody knows.
Look, it's live. There's a lot of Chargers players here today. I think he's smart by wearing green because he stands out. If the 6'4" didn't already stand out.
Yes, it's just a little pun.
I tried. Derek Ansley, I think, is going to be a big change for this defense. I think it's going to matter. Because Ronaldo Hill, this is not a shade at Ronaldo Hill, but the way that it was presented, Ronaldo Hill was much more of like a behind the scenes, wasn't necessarily in your face as a player. We've seen it throughout camp, preseason. When something went right, Derek Ansley was there to hype his guys up. When something went wrong, Derek Ansley was there immediately in their ear about what they needed to do differently. The accountability, not just from Derek Ansley, but also player to player, player to Derek Ansley, that I think will see dividends early. So, where do we go from here, Jake? Talked about week 1. Talked about kind of the main storylines that have changed this year versus last. Mike check, your call.
Dan, we have been doing this live show for just over an hour. And I know we have talked about the running game, but we have not even talked about the running backs themselves in this show. So what you've already seen in the preseason, and again, we're talking about a certain individual that wears the number 30 that didn't even play. But when you see Joshua Kelly ripping off a 70-yard run, when you see Isaiah Spiller, that aside from a holding call that negated a long run from him, obviously from what you saw from Elijah Dotson, and the Chargers ultimately ended up keeping 4 running backs on their 53-man roster, something that we were skeptical on if that was even going to take place given the position needs elsewhere. But what do you expect now? Is this finally the year from when Austin Eckler said it 2 years ago that someone needs to step up and help me out? Is this finally the stable where you can find that help?
Dear all things holy, please make this the year that we see running back 2 make a giant step forward for this Chargers team, because all we have seen has been Austin Eckler, and then like a precipitous drop, like down to the floor. That's where RB2, 3, 4, 5 has been. Sometimes RB6 because of attrition at the running back position. We have seen all the way through Elijah Dotson, playmaking, explosive runs, smart runs, vision, patience during camp and preseason. I do think this is the year. This running game fits both Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller far more than years previously. These guys have kind of like the one jump go downhill type of running style that molds very well with the type that you have with Kellen Moore and his offense you saw in Dallas. And then much like a Tony Pollard that we saw previously, Austin Eckler can kind of be that scat back, multiple broken tackles, being able to break ankles, get outside, inside, take screenplays, all that kind of stuff. Like that's what he's good at. If they can have both of those and keep defenses on their toes by not just the passing game and all the different levels of which they can win there, but then the running game and then tempo, like all of these things on top of each other is what's going to make this offense have the ability and potential to be incredibly hard to dissect and be ready for. Like as a defense, like who do you look for? Like, for example, if you're defending defensive coordinator, let's say you're Miami. Okay, guys, the one guy we got to stop this week, not named Justin Herbert, is who? Like, what's the answer to that? Like, you could say Austin Eckler, but then like, all right, we got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer. You can say like all the receivers. Okay, well, we have Gerald Everett and Austin Eckler and all the running backs, and like so multifaceted where it's unpredictable. Like, if you're okay, here's a question. If you're the defensive coordinator, how do you try to stop this offense?
Well, if you're Vic Fangio and you have the front that Miami has, obviously stopping the run comes a little bit easier to you than it does to other teams. But in terms of if you're trying to rank on who do you stop first outside of Justin Herbert, in my opinion, your next move would be obviously Keenan Allen. My next one would be Austin Eckler, because you know how lethal he has been over the last 2 years and what he's done for this team in terms of production. So I don't think that you're going to be in a situation to where you're not going to have an opposing defense overlooking that facet of the team. However, it's what's going to come down to it in the trenches that the Chargers, I think, are going to surprise some people on to say, oh, that running game is working a hell of a lot better than we thought. Oh, this running back by committee it's running back by committee now. It's not just Austin Eckler doing the work, and you're having guys like Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller take up chunks of yards and take time off the clock against opposing defenses. So while I don't think it's necessarily something that somebody's going to overlook, I think Kellen Moore is going to make a statement to say, look, this is where we're going to surprise you. All the eyes are on Justin Herbert this year, and rightfully so, but we're going to make this a balanced offense.
This might be a homer take, but you're saying that, but okay, so let's go through that. So, all right. So after Keenan Allen, you said then it's Austin Eckler, and that's after Justin Herbert, obviously. Like, how many other teams would beg to have your fourth and fifth option on offense be either Mike Williams, Mr. 90-10, or Gerald Everett up the middle, or Joshua Palmer, who I think is highly underrated? Those are your 4, 5, and 6 weapons that the Chargers have to deploy, not even including Joshua Kelly or Isaiah Spiller. It just brings so many options for Kellen Moore, and this is why there's no way that I could be an offensive coordinator, because like sometimes you're almost spoiled with so many weapons, and you kind of like, how do you prioritize that, and how do you turn that into an effective system that can deploy and exploit those mismatches? Like, it's a great problem to have, obviously, but that's so many guys that this Chargers offense has, and we've talked about it. If they can stay healthy, I'm knocking on wood. If they can stay healthy, this offense is going to be lethal.
Dan, remember when we've been having conversations about, trying to predict, what Quentin Johnson's rookie season was going to be, or how many yardage this player is going to be. It's hard when there's only one football to throw around, and the number of weapons that we have talked about what this team has. But I go back again to what Kellen Moore said weeks ago when people were talking about the wide receiver 3 competition between Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston, who's going to win it. And his response was, we have 4 starting wide receivers in this league. Kellen Moore is going to operate with not a care in the world in who gets the football. As long as it is moving the ball downfield and putting up points in the red zone, it does not matter. So you're going to have so many options with this team, I think, in this system. And like we said, that's going to in turn help maximize Justin Herbert.
And maximizing Justin Herbert, I think, is probably the number one priority for Kellen Moore coming into this team. You've got a healthy Justin Herbert now, throwing to guys like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. You've got an offensive line now. Rashawn Slater is back. You've got the whole offensive line now together, synergizing. They've played together with time. Running game seems to be looking much better. The defense seems to be looking much better. The addition of Eric Kendricks has like a leadership role, communication on the defense. Like things are coming together. I think the way that Chargers fans and Chargers organization have been hoping for. And then when you get down to like the 53-man roster and you get to kind of the roster cuts and some of the guys that were brought in on the practice squad, it seems like there's kind of like targeted missile strikes of things that the Chargers felt like they knew they were missing, and then they felt like they needed to go out and get. They got the tight end that can block, veteran there. They got Dean Marlowe. They've got the safety help on the back end that brings experience and in theory, brings in some more form factor tackling. They've got Elijah Dotson, who made it as a UDFA. They brought in, obviously Gerard Clark is still on this team. They kept Zach Bailey on the practice squad. A lot of the things, like think about what the Chargers have on a practice squad on the bottom of the 53-man roster now in terms of like experience than what they had a year ago. And again, that points to the depth. And a lot of times people talk about like, oh, how incredible some of the top end talent is on a team, which I think is important. But Jake, I think like the part that is refreshing to me is the quote unquote floor or the bottom end of this roster, I think has risen substantially from what we've seen years past. When a guy goes down, how does the guy behind him compare and how much of a variance is that? The underbelly of this team looks way better. And I think that's something that we just have not talked about enough and can't be talked about enough. Can those guys at the bottom of the roster bring up the team when they need it?
Again, I think you go back to what you've already seen from Kellen Moore. And more importantly, I think what you're going to see, what Brandon Staley has learned going into his 3rd year as the head coach. Now, like we've said plenty of times as it relates to Brandon Staley on this show, obviously he's had his ups, he's had his downs, he has made mistakes, but he has owned those mistakes. And I think when he is now surrounding himself with guys like Kellen Moore, promoting Derek Ansley, which obviously showed how valuable that he was to this team. And even still, as you kind of saw in preseason, where he's handing off some of the play calling duties to Derek Ansley. I still don't believe that this is just going to be Brandon Staley's defense anymore. I think you're going to see a very nice infusion of Derek Ansley in this defense. Obviously, he'll still be calling the plays, but it's going to be with a little bit more of an Ansley touch to it. So I think that Brandon has learned a lot in what has taken place over the last 2 years, just enough in what took place in the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's aware of what he has on this team. You have your quarterback secured for the future. You have a insane amount of talent on both sides of the ball. I think he knows what this team is capable of. And I think that as far as what he's taken away during his time as a head coach thus far is going to come to a culmination here in year 3.
I agree. We are live at the Bolt Show at the Marriott in Anaheim. Bolt Show. Folks here, local, let's make some noise for your Los Angeles Chargers 2023 squad. You got Mike Williams currently up at the, I'm going to call it the podium, signing autographs as we speak. Got a line going about a quarter of the way through the wall. Still to come, Keenan Allen will be here. Let's make some noise for Keenan Allen upcoming. You've got Asante Samuel Jr. coming up. You've got old school Darren Sproles will be in the house here in a bit. Eric Kendricks, UCLA alum, will also be here momentarily later this afternoon. We've already seen Tito Ogbang Amiga here, as well as Tuli Tuipulotu, have been gracious enough with their time to come hang out with Chargers fans and Rock Solid Sports memorabilia here at the Marriott. Jake, let's take one more commercial break here for a hot sec. We get situated. We'll see these players. And we'll talk more about the Los Angeles Chargers heading into week 1 on Chargers Unleashed. We'll be back. All right. Mike Williams just finished his signing. Number 81 of the Los Angeles Chargers. Next up will be a one Keenan Allen in about 10 minutes, Jake. Exciting times. Talked about Keenan Allen quite a bit. Real quick, though. Michael Williams, Keenan Allen. There's a lot of variables here, but what do you see for them stats-wise? Just those two combined. You don't have to give me one in particular, but like if it was, let's say, Michael Williams, Keenan Allen, let's go combine. Hold on. Chargers fans are excited. Keenan Allen, Eric Kendricks, Asante Samuel Jr., Darren Sproles. All will be here this afternoon. Exciting event for Los Angeles Chargers fans. Woo! Chargers fans, let's make it up for Jay Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia for hosting the event. Let's give a round of applause for Jay. Come on, fellas, ladies. Coming up next is going to be Keenan Allen, the Slayer himself, in about 8 minutes, give or take a couple. Jake, there's folks here that are dressed up in full-on jersey, like head to toe. I'm talking cleats, yellow pants,
Yes.
white jersey. This is impressive. Chargers fans showed after this, by the way. Okay. Combined stats. Mike Keenan. Well, yeah, I'll help you out here a bit. Over or under.
Here we go.
Over or under. 2,100 yards combined. 18 touchdowns. Over under on each.
So nice. So nine touchdowns apiece, 18 between them. See, here's the key variable here again, is because
he made this seem like it was like an easy question.
It's
now
it's not an easy question at all. But I like the fact that you kind of shot for the moon on that, because based on what we have heard from Kellen Moore and how both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are going to be rotating their respective positions in terms of playing outside or in the slot, and what that's going to do for them in terms of confusing defenses. So how is that going to translate to the stat line? If you're telling me that you're going to give Keenan Allen more opportunities in the slot, I harken back to when you offered me this wager a couple years back, to where you had given me a line for Keenan Allen.
Still got it.
From a yard standpoint and how many touchdowns he was going to get. And with 4 games left, it was pretty much beat at that point in time. I don't know if you can guarantee me, again, with one football and all the weapons that we have talked about with this team, that Keenan Allen is necessarily going to break 1,000 yards. Would love to see it. 9 touchdowns, though, that I could definitely see.
So
over or under 2,100 yards and 18 touchdowns between Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I'm going to say yes on the yardage, no on the touchdowns.
So over 2,100 yards combined, under 18 touchdowns.
Under 18 touchdowns.
I think I agree. I think I could probably see 2,300. I mean, we've already seen them each get 1,000-yard seasons before.
Again, we're still only talking about one football.
I know. We're moments away from Keenan Allen joining Chargers fans here at the Marriott in Anaheim at the Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia put-on show of the Bolt Show. Chargers fans are literally standing room around the edges, sitting down out in the lobby. We've been here for a few hours. We've got a few hours left. Jake? Well, we're, what, 8 days away from week 1. If you had, let's say it was Christmas, okay? Let's give it like a month prior.
You choose to present this, by the way.
Yeah, a month prior to Christmas, you're like putting on your Christmas wish list, things you'd like to see week 1. You could be as specific or as vague as possible.
Okay,
as
you're
like.
giving me an out. Fantastic.
Yes. If you close your eyes, if Chargers fans close their eyes, what do you see as the things that Chargers fans are most wanting to see week 1 versus Miami? Like, I'm talking, if this particular thing happens, Chargers fan euphoria ignites, Everyone goes home. They have their dessert ice cream for celebrations. They're booking Super Bowl tickets. Excitement through the roof. What is the thing or things that will get Chargers fans most excited, other than a victory, obviously? Other than a victory. I'm not going to let you go out that easily.
I like how you swooped in at the last minute and took away the easy answer, which, of course, it's a W. That should be top on anybody's list. I really don't think that it matters, Dan. Whether we're talking about Justin Herbert through the air, or if this run game gets going early and the trench warfare is winning, or if the defense is able to swarm and engulf Miami and keep them to a lower score than maybe a lot of people expected, it really doesn't matter. It could end up being a 35-34 score, and if the Chargers are on top of that on the way out, it really doesn't matter. You get the W and you win. I think you would want to see a little bit of that aggressiveness that we've been hearing so much about during the preseason with Justin Herbert. I would definitely like to see how this defense is going to fare given Tua and the situation that he's in. And obviously you can't discount what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle can do to that offense and what they're going to be doing in terms of trying to keep the ball away from Justin Herbert with their running game with, hey, one of your favorites in E-Chain. So, and how he's going to feature in the offense. So
I hope he
sucks
week one.
It really does not matter to me because this is going to be a highly competitive matchup week one with an AFC conference opponent. And at the end of the day, just get out with a W. It could be a messy ass game. It could end up 10-7 and be one of the, messiest games you've ever seen from an offensive and a defense standpoint. Doesn't matter at the end of the day.
See, I beg to differ. Obviously, like the win, if they lose, doesn't matter. If they win, everything's going to be shined up. But I'm talking Christmas wish list, Jake. Imagine, if you will, Tua drops back right before he gets slammed to the ground by Joey Bosa. Throws interception to J.C. Jackson. Pick 6 for a touchdown to seal the game. J.C. Jackson, interception. Picks off Tua, which is a whole other storyline that we haven't talked about. We're not going to quite yet. Find me a storyline or an individual play, anything that would top that on the Richter scale of earthquakes to affect the Chargers fan base. If J.C. Jackson has a pick 6 against Tua, covering Tyreek Hill.
Okay, so you want like a hypothetical scenario, something that I envision actually taking place in the game.
Beat that.
Okay, that's a little bit better than, what's on the Christmas wish list for, what is going to happen during the Miami game? Obviously, they're going to win. We want them to win.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. Okay, since you're always harping on me about, bold predictions for the game and whatnot, for a Christmas wish list standpoint, how about Justin Herbert throw 350 yards? 4 touchdowns.
4?
You asked me to be aggressive. You asked me if this is a Christmas wish list.
I'd love it.
I would love to see something like that.
If I open that present and that came out.
But I don't expect that to happen against a Vic Fangio defense. But if this is a Christmas wish list,
Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever.
Maybe that's something that we're talking about.
Speaking of wish list, if you have a raffle ticket, this side of the auditorium, please. White raffle ticket. Be prepared on that side. Keenan Allen will be here momentarily. Jake, as we wrap up the live show, you may have a couple special guests here later that we might be pushing out later in the afternoon or tomorrow on the show. Last thoughts, topics, questions, things you want to make sure we talk about before we get out of here.
I mean, I think we need to end on this event, Dan. We've been, obviously, Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia has been a partner of this show for a very long time now. And J-Rock, who has made his presence known in, one flash or another coming through here on the show. This is his event. He has made his business in memorabilia, and this is a fantastic turnout as it relates to the Charger faithful and this fan base. And he is currently speaking right now.
Hold, please.
Going back to J-Rock, Dan. Again, this is his event.
Speaking of which, this is his event.
Yes.
Raffle tickets were purchased originally. Now, J-Rock comes out, the man he is, says, if you do not have a raffle ticket already, line up. Everyone gets a raffle ticket. Everybody come get your raffle ticket.
You get a raffle ticket. You get a raffle ticket.
Again, if you do not have a raffle ticket, today's your lucky day. Line up. You're getting one. courtesy of J Rock and Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia. Again, last call. If you do not have a raffle ticket, go get in line, and you can get it. Bowl Pros. Here.
Very nice sachet right behind the camera. That was very nice. No, Dan, I'll close it off with J Rock for this. Again, been a partner of the show for a while now. He has put on this event. It's definitely one of the biggest Chargers public signing events in recent memory, at least since we've been doing this show. That's definite. And he has made his lifetime about memorabilia. This is his business. So definitely want to shout out to him for putting on this event. As you can see behind us, it's been a fantastic turnout this afternoon here in Anaheim at the Marriott Suites. So got to give all the thanks in the world to him. And this has been an event for the fans, and you can see how excited they are for this upcoming season. We are just 8 days away from the kickoff to the NFL season for the Los Angeles Chargers. Dan, that's my last words for today.
If you are watching live, this is your last chance, last call for questions, topics, concerns, things like this to discuss. Kind of rapid fire here. Jake, talking about wish lists. Someone brought in Jared's wish list is week 1. Khalil Mack and Bosa meet up with Tua for a sack fumble and is picked up by one other than Kenneth Murray or Eric Hendricks. This is very specific. Scoop and score, fumble for the touchdown. Does that beat J.C. Jackson interception pick 6?
This scenario sounds like a Rube Goldberg machine type of scenario. That sounds like a lot of elements happening.
I wonder if we could put that line in Vegas. Like, you know how much money you can win?
No kidding.
Look, this has been a ton of fun. We've had many players here. We still have some players. Again, we've had a Tito Ogbang Amiga, Tuli Tuipulotu here already. We've already seen Mike Williams. We got Keenan Allen coming up next. Asante Samuel Jr., Darren Sproles, Eric Kendricks, to name a few. The day is just getting started here in Anaheim. Keenan Allen just moments away here. Jake, this has been fun. Again, shout out to Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia. Look, LAFB has been here for the last few years. We're trying to support the fans, do as much as we can. Chargers Unleashed, this is what, year 4 for us already?
Wow.
I think the gray hair, honestly, I'm going to blame the Chargers. Like, I'm this might be a cop-out, but I think the Chargers are to blame.
Why do you think I wear my hat so often on the show, Dan?
Because it takes a while for you to do your hair.
That'll do it from Chargers Unleashed. Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Look, this has been a ton of fun. We're going to take one last commercial break before we bring Keenan Allen in as we send off from our live show today. Stay tuned here. We'll be back in about 2 or 3 minutes. Send off a one Keenan Allen and get this thing popping. Be back soon. All right. Raffles getting put out as we go. Ooh.
Apparently,
we have a winner.
Just missed.
We have a winner. Rivers Lake Yacht Club founder has won. Showed up in a suit, by the way. Looking fresh. One more raffle being done for Chargers fans.
Photo op.
Photo op is getting called out next. Jake, we have a question here. Darren Sproles was in the news recently about this Chargers team and expectations, and may have to ask him a question or two when he gets here. We have a winner! All right. Jake, this has been fun. We have much more in store. We may have a guest to interview or two here on the horizon, but this will do it for the live show. We may have some stuff being provided later on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But again, for Chargers Unleashed, LA Football Network, Rock Solid Sports Memorabilia, the Marriott in Anaheim, Swoop and Tailgate. We've got so many folks here that have made this thing happen. To all the Chargers players, past and present, who have made this thing happen, We appreciate you. Chargers fans showed up for this. And look, Jake, we 8 days away from Chargers week 1 versus Miami. We're going to talk all about that all week. But until then, Jake Heffner, Dan Wolkenstein, Chargers Unleashed. We'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.